I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You're the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. You know, if you are in the United States, Canada, even actually in some other countries, Europe and Australia, you've heard a lot, especially around the election last year, you know, the whole political season. You heard this term DEI. And some of you, you know, I just say the letters and you're already having a negative reaction. Others of you are like, hey, what's the big deal? I mean, diversity, equity, inclusion, those are very nice sounding words. And in some form or another, I could endorse the individual words. But really, what is it? Is it really that big a deal? How does it impact you? What should you know? And maybe, I don't know, should you even do anything about it? Does it really impact your life? We're gonna dig into some of those things. And the reason we're going to dig into them is so that you are aware, so that you are not caught off guard, as some have been, and where my children all grew up going to school when some things popped into the library that were like, that's not even suitable for adults, much less children, but we'll get it. Okay. We want to arm you with knowledge. We're going to do that today. To do that, we're going to talk to a gentleman who is the author of a book called DEI Exposed. It looks just like this. It's available wherever you get books. And the author of that is Dr. Stanley Ridgley. And he is a clinical full professor of strategic management at Drexel University. I don't know what all that means, but he'll tell us. He's also a Russian language linguist and a former military intelligence officer. So we're going to go high level here. That's what I do. I try to bring you people that know a lot more than I do. And in this case, it was easy. So appreciate you guys being here. Hit that share button. If you know somebody that you think, oh, they're going to want to know about this, hit that share button. Dr. Ridgley, good to have you on the program. Welcome to Life Today Live.
Randy, it's a pleasure to be here. You're an erudite guy. You're learned, just as your audience is, and I'm looking forward to talking about DEI and what we can do to put a stop to it.
So, first questions. Educate me on your education. What does that mean exactly? What is your professor's job at Drexel?
Oh, my professor job is to enlighten young minds, I like to think, but basically we teach in the business school how people can create wealth systematically to help ensure the prosperity of our nation. And we do this in a number of ways, through teaching accounting, through teaching marketing, through teaching operations, through teaching strategy. Strategy, to my mind, I teach a number of strategy courses. I also teach how to manipulate and manage technology and technology improvements, such as artificial intelligence, that kind of thing. I think strategic management and strategy is really the closest thing to a crystal ball that we have, the closest thing to a magic formula for success, in that it trains people how to think in a certain way, not restrictively in terms of ideas, but restrictively in the sense that we're going to focus on where we want to be 5 years from now and let that vision inform what we do today. Now, that's what I do now. I'm trained as a political scientist at Duke University. I got my PhD in international relations and security, focusing on the time at the Soviet Union at the time. Mm-hmm. And I've worked also in the nonprofit sector, and I've been to Russia about 20 times. I attended Moscow State University for a short while. And I've taught in Colombia and Russia and Singapore, Spain, and most recently China and India, 10 years in India. So it kind of levens my experience in bringing that analytical ability that is inculcated in military intelligence people. I like to think that what I have to say about this particular issue is worthy.
Yeah. Okay. No, that explains a lot, because DEI is impacting you quite a bit. And wow. Okay. You get it on a level we don't. For that explanation, I say spasiba. So that's.
Ni za что, moj drug, moj novi drug. Yeah.
I exhausted the
I
extent
said, many
of my
thanks, many thanks, my friend, my new friend.
I love it. Okay. So let's talk about DEI. Go ahead, and for those who maybe, I don't know, because with any of these issues, I find that you kind of got your Fox News crowd, which kind of has one definition for things like DEI. You got your CNN and everybody else crowd, which has like a different definition for DEI. And so sometimes we talk about it, but we're not talking about the same thing. So when you talk about DEI, how do you see it?
Well, first of all, you are right. You're exactly right that people who argue most vociferously about DEI are really talking past each other, I think, to a larger, that's even an understatement of it. Because most people of good heart, goodwill, who believe that DEI is, is moral, right, noble, and proper, simply do not understand what DEI is. They have filled this empty decanter with their own notion of what it consists of. It sounds good. It must be a good thing, and I'm going to invest my vanity and my virtue and my narcissism into this concept, and I'm going to attack people who must be racist, who must be stupid, who must not have the best interests of our country at heart for criticizing DEI. And this conception of DEI, this misconception usually goes something like this. It's usually, well, we're just trying to create a level playing field. We're just trying to lift up marginalized communities. We're just trying to give everyone a fair shot. It's just teaching about race. It's just teaching about slavery. Well, as a matter of fact, Randy, it's really none of those things unless those things happen as a byproduct of the real agenda of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which really is the applicability, I should say the implementation phase of critical race theory, which views the world in a very cramped way. DEI exemplifies the ideology, a binary ideology, a Manichaean struggle of evil and good, oppressors and oppressed, exploiters and exploited, villains and victims, and it attempts to penetrate the college campus and train students, faculty, and staff compulsorily in this type of worldview that views America is a racist country, irredeemably so, and that it is permeated with white supremacy culture. And this has to be rooted out. Now, when people go into a classroom or a seminar room for one of these trainings by these folks who were let onto the campus en masse back in 2020, 2021, they're told they're one of two categories based on their race. They're either a villain or a victim. This is a fact. This is what they say. This is what they do. This is what I chronicle in my book, DEI Exposed. Now, I think it's important that, well, you can favor that. You may believe that. But what's important is we understand that that is the DEI in its reality. It's not this gauzy Elysian view of, well, it's just lifting people. No, it's none of those things. It is really a harsh technique, a harsh tactic. It's called a resource extraction strategy. That's direct from psychology. It's called virtuous victimhood, where if you can, you being, of course, the DEI apparatchiks, can convince an institution or a group of people that they are villains and that you are a victim of them and their actions, then you can extract resources from them. This is what is meant by resource extraction strategy. And this was the big con. That's the subtitle of my book, The Biggest Con of the Century, almost suckered and almost toppled higher education. The big con is this, is they have convinced universities somehow the universities are complicit in a white racist society and that they must pay reparations and they must employ lavishly compensated bureaucracies to preach this ideology on the college campus. That's the reality of DEI. And most people, they just don't want to hear it. Yeah. It just sounds so bizarre, but no, this is what they actually say, they being the apparatchiks, and this is what DEI Exposed seeks to present to the American people.
You know, when this first rolled out, and I went looking, what is critical race theory? Because I heard it vilified on Fox News, and I thought, well, is it really that? What is it? And I know there's variations of it, but one of the founding professors, he was in Florida, and then most recently at Texas A&M. I don't know if he's still there, but he laid out sort of the foundational principles, and one of them I actually agreed with, and that was that race is a human construct, a societal construct, not a scientific reality, and it's used to oppress people, the idea of race. And I thought, well, that's very interesting, because the more I looked at the idea just of race, and the more I realized that, one, it's not biblical, completely not biblical. There's more diversity in a troop of chimpanzees as far as the DNA is concerned than there is the entire human race. So, I mean, it's scientifically, it's junk science. But where'd it come from? Well, it came from, a lot of it is popularized at least by Darwin, and the original title of what we call The Origin of Species was actually On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. And so I go, why are we still teaching this junk science of the idea of race, which is, it's junk science and it's completely not biblical. And so I basically came to the position where I reject the notion of race itself. And when you understand that we're from one, created by God, descended from one human, and there's no division. We have variations in skin color, hair color, eye color, size, shape, all these good things. But there is no such thing as race. And yet society, through the DEI, has constructed everything around this junk science idea of race. And so I can't even have that conversation in a lot of ways, because foundationally we're completely different. Is that a good approach to even starting to dismantle the ideas of DEI when you go for the straight foundation and say, well, race is not real? Does that work?
Yes, it does. It works very well. It's just a variation of what several variations of how to approach the issue, but you are spot on in the sense that the folks who believe in DEI, the folks who believe in critical race theory, there is no more important fact in our social life than race.
That's right.
This is the only thing that they have that to explain outcomes. Now think about that for a second. We're always searching in social sciences. I'm a political scientist by training. We're looking for solutions to outcomes. We're looking for explanations for outcomes. Why did society produce this outcome? Why did this group of people do this, or why did this group? We're looking for the reason for these outcomes. For the DEI folks, for the CRT, critical race theory folks, there's only one reason. And they have discovered the secret of history. Karl Marx discovered the secret of history. The motive says historical materialism. Class was the great motive force. And I have nothing bad to say about Karl Marx. There's lots of other people who say bad things about that old shyster. But the fact is that he came up with really interesting insight, and that is the power of class to affect the way we look at outcomes. But he made the same mistake that the racialists and DEI are making today, and that is he attributed sole responsibility to class as being the outcome. The idea of he thought that he discovered the secrets of history, the motive force of you have a thesis and antithesis, which forms a new synthesis in this performance, and so this is the motive force of class conflict. And he believed himself to be the incarnation in social sciences of Charles Darwin. He actually wanted Charles Darwin to write people don't realize this, to write the introduction to the Capital. And Darwin said, I don't think I want to be connected to this. He says, no, thank you, but no, thank you. In the same way with DEI or critical race theory, they think they have found the secret motive force that explains everything in society, that they can peer into the contradictions of race and class and power and privilege and critical consciousness and divine an explanation that makes sense. Now, this is pure pseudoscience. I mean, Karl Popper was a great writer on a great critic of Karl Marx, and his critique of Karl Marx and the Capital and the idea of communism and the idea of class conflict. His critique applies to DEI Exposed as well. I'm sorry, to DEI. It's fake science. It's not. It's not, has no scientific bearing whatsoever. It's pseudoscience. And the fact that it has made it onto the campuses and did so in such grand fashion during the BLM riots time of 2020, 2021, really speaks to how vulnerable the universities are to this kind of nonsense, especially when it's coupled to a social movement that wants to basically make people feel guilty about events that they had nothing to do with. And I think that is one of the motive forces of this villains and victims paradigm, where you've got virtuous victimhood. We're victims. You are guilty of villainizing us. I'm sorry, of victimizing us, and we want reparations. And this is again called the resource extraction strategy, whereby DEI folks are extracting a lot of money out of our financially strapped universities.
Yeah, well, and I think that points to sort of the subtitle of your book. You call it the biggest con of the century. Is it really mostly about people just extracting wealth and power from the masses?
There's some true believers who actually believe this nonsense in the same way most any cult has true believers, and and has fellow travelers and people who are dupes and stooges for a swan song, a sweet song sung by a pseudo academic. But there's an awful lot of these people who are called grifters. This is the language of con artists, of con artistry. They play a confidence game where they get your confidence, and they want you to extract something from you, like a fortune teller. A fortune teller is a grifter. Basically, they're going to fool you into thinking they can tell you the future, and you're going to give them your money. And that's a small time grift, sometimes called a peanut grift. And so a lot of peanut grifters were off the campus, and they've been trying to get on the campus for a long time with their fakery. And my goodness, 2020, 2021 opened the doors to this kind of fakery. University presidents were scared as could be that the disruptions were going to come to their campuses, and they wanted to stop that. And they did so the best way they knew how, and that's to go prostrate and surrender. And it's very much like Jesse Jackson used to do in the 80s and early 90s with his protection racket. You probably recall this. He would he would approach a corporation and say, you know what? Nice business you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it. Why don't you drop a donation on Operation Push, and we'll make sure that nothing happens to it. This is the con game, or the protection racket from the 20s and 30s gangster movies, right? In the same way, DEI said, nice university you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it. If you got accused of being racist, we can make that go away. Just hire us onto your campus, luxurious salaries to the range of $300,000 to $500,000 a year, and we'll ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen to your university.
Yeah, geez. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Most people don't realize that the con and con artist is what you said, confidence. It's short for confidence, and that is where they've gone. Okay, I want to hit the three big letters, right? D, E, and I. I have heard from politicians for years now, diversity is our strength. And I'm like, actually, I don't think so. I actually believe that diversity is beautiful. I love other cultures, eating their food, learning their ways, trying to speak a little of their language. I find other cultures beautiful and fascinating. But I believe our strength comes in our unity behind truth. Of course, if it's behind a falsehood like this, there is strength there too. So I would say that diversity is more about beauty than strength. How do you see diversity in a proper way as opposed to how it's used in DEI?
Well, diversity, plain and simple, is simply a synonym for variety. That's how I view it. It has no inherent worth. I don't think that the sense that unity by itself in a vacuum has no inherent worth. Diversity in a vacuum has no inherent worth either. What are we talking about? You're talking about in your peroration there was diversity of cultures, looking at the best that each culture has to offer.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, there's some bad.
Right. There's an awful lot of diversity out there that I want nothing to do with. There's an awful lot of unity out there that I want nothing to do with. But we have to remember the power of words and the power of cults that utilize words just like these. I give you the Unification Church, more commonly called the Moonies. Now, their a longtime slogan was peace and unity. Peace and unity. Now, who's going to be against peace and unity? This is how they, bait the hook to get people to come in and listen to a very fine message that talks nothing about the actual beliefs or the belief system embraced by this particular cult. And the same way with inclusion and belonging. The same way with diversity. This idea, diversity is our strength, is absurd. That is the most absurd. It's like people have turned off their critical faculties, taken off their thinking caps, and go nodding. Oh, okay. Okay. No, how about innovation is our strength? Creativity is our strength. Sure. Take your pick. Hard work is our strength. A good diet is our strength. I mean, come on, you can put anything in there and make it sound good. But the idea of we're gonna pay homage to this slogan, that is basic to my mind, is a very vapid slogan, one of the worst I've ever heard. So that's my take on diversity. Once we begin talking about diversity in specifics, then we can have a conversation. But this notion that diversity is something we have to genuflect to, just by virtue of someone saying it. And by the way, I should tell you, if you're in one of these training sessions, and I've attended a lot of them, I mean, the gold star goes to the first person who can say diversity. It's crazy. Diversity. It's amazing how these buzzwords come to dominate our public discourse.
Yeah, it's great until your diversity disagrees with them.
Yeah.
Then it's a whole thing. All right, so equity. I mean, the Constitution says that all men are created equal, right? So, I mean, I'm playing dumb here. Shouldn't equity be something we should all love and strive for?
Well, of course not. I think that equity, the most easiest way to explain equity is that everyone must finish at the finish line at the same time. That's equity, okay? Regardless of inputs, regardless of efforts sustained, regardless of talent, regardless of any type of cultural or / individual effort, everyone has to wind up at the end, at the finish line at the same time. It's equal outcomes. That's what equity means. And I think that Karl Marx was the first to really express equity in a formula that is very familiar with people. I think he did it in the Critique of the Goethe program in 1875. He said, from each according to his ability to each according to his need, which is kind of a defined, really a definition of equity. This throws equal opportunity out the window. We offer equal opportunity, the idea that we remove as many artificial barriers, as many artificial obstacles as possible, and then we count on individuals supplying what's needed to basically express themselves in their fullest manner capable, with talent, with their background, their desires to excel. And we don't give the same acclaim to someone who spends their evenings, say, studying, as someone who spends his evenings at the local happy hour. I mean, you're going to get different outcomes, right? But equity says we all have to finish at the same point in time without looking at all we're going to assume that everyone tried hard. We're going to assume that there are certain disadvantages that people had, like going to the happy hour every night instead of studying, that kind of thing. And so I think that equity is it's basically a lie. It's basically a fraud, because it's not being presented in the way that it actually is, and its truth. This equal finish line result is something that the Soviets, and something the Communist Chinese, something that Fidel, something that North Korea has always advocated. Yeah. The idea we're going to wear the same clothing, the idea we're going to receive the same pay. I mean, the Soviets paid truck drivers the same as they paid doctors. I mean, this is the fact. This is part of my specialty, was looking at Soviet society throughout 1917 to 1991 at the end, and they paid truck drivers the same as doctors, because they wanted to remove supply and demand and just say, we want to pay people what we believe they should earn in our society. So equal outcomes, equity. And so the result is you get, pretty good truck driver service, but you get pretty damn poor, medical service. So that's the result of equity.
Yeah, I can just picture a surgeon approaching things the way that a truck driver might repair his engine. That frightens me.
Well, you're not attracting the best and the brightest into the medical profession.
No, I'm sure. I mean, but seriously, it sounds like equity is the enemy of equal opportunity.
Well, I think so, because the idea, one of those things where if you're a hardworking person who's really paid the price in terms of sweat equity, in terms of time, in terms of sacrifice for the future, putting aside a good time, putting aside, saving your money, that kind of thing to go to college. And then over here, you've got someone who is basically a prodigal son, is basically profligate, basically is not a frugal person, and both are going to be guaranteed the same outcomes, regardless of the input. Well, then what you've just done is you have stripped away the incentive for the person who works hard to work hard. It doesn't matter what I do. Again, back to the Soviets, there's an old joke that the Soviets are very funny. The people were very funny with their jokes. They said, we live in an equitable society. We pretend to work, and the government pretends to pay us. That was the huge pretense that everyone had here. That it was, one big fraud or one big performative show.
Yeah. Wow. I talked about recently right when the Berlin Wall was coming down. In fact, we went through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin, and a week later they lifted it out on a crane, and that was an early experience for me to see the same culture, the same people, the same language, same background, in that microcosm, and the only difference was sort of the economic structure, a lot of what you're talking about, and the difference was night and day. Not just in the buildings and the cars, which was crazy, like stepping back 50 years, but also in the countenance of the people. I mean, they look beat down on the east side of the wall, whereas they were vibrant and prosperous. So, there's obvious impacts on society of these ideas. The last one, inclusion. I mean, shouldn't everyone be included? Rapists, murderers, pedophiles, and
Well, until you're willing to explicate exactly what you mean by inclusion, and I like to say that the college. I refer to higher education when I'm talking about this. Okay, the college is not your living room. Okay, it's not a country club. It's not a senior living facility. It's not an after-school program. We want to make everyone protect. It's not that at all. We're adults here. Supposedly we're adults here, 18 and older, and the idea that I'm going to do something that's going to make you feel included. No, you were admitted, you applied, you were admitted. And by the way, let me just interject here. Apparently, it's not an inclusive community in the university because those enrollment managers are always rejecting people, saying, we're not going to include you. We are rejecting you. You don't belong here because you don't measure up. Apparently, the enrollment managers are the only ones who can say, no, we're not including you and you don't belong. But once these students are here, suddenly the faculty are supposed to, maybe staff are supposed to do something amorphous. We're never quite told what to do, is to make someone feel included. If someone wants to be a loner, I say, hey, have at it. If someone wants to stand aloof, hey, have at it. Because we are all adults, and I look at individuals as individuals, motivated in different ways, just as you do, I'm sure. But it's really interesting what you mentioned about the East Berlin, West Berlin. I was stationed there for a year and a half in the early 80s, and I'm very well aware of the difference in the atmosphere in the two societies. Where I used to work in the intelligence station, it was the highest point in West Berlin. On a Saturday night, you go up and look down on the city. West Berlin is lit up all around you. East Berlin is dark because they had a curfew of lights to save power. You look at the same dichotomy, like a social experiment in North Korea, South Korea. People with the same culture, same ethnicity, but with two entirely different social systems, yielding a different result. One, of course, in North is equity driven, and but the inclusion part is, again, very amorphous, and it sounds good. It sounds really, really good, but I will tell you, I'll give you an example, is the Bud Light commercial starring Dylan Mulvaney and the advertising campaign. The idea that this person, her name is Alyssa Hannerscheid, who was the marketing manager for this brand, said that, well, this beer is the best-selling beer in America, is that this beer has a fratty image, and we have to solve the problem. I'm thinking to myself, what is the problem we're trying to solve? It's the leading beer in America. It's not a problem brand that needs to have some sort of thing done to it. Well, she did something to it, and she said, we're going to make it more inclusive. Well, that's basically against everything we say in the business world. Brands are exclusive. Brands are targeted towards certain segments of people for particular reasons. There's no such thing as an inclusive brand. And I think that the idea of inclusiveness and inclusivity, again, is a kind of a Trojan horse word designed to get you to support things that you really wouldn't if you were given specifics.
Yeah, and it's probably the most hypocritical of the three letters because it's not very inclusive. All right, this is the book, DEI Exposed. Written by Dr. Stanley Ridgley, and we're not even going to have a chance to get to some really interesting topics that you cover, like snitch culture, we touched on BLM a little bit. The white supremacy culture is another one that there's a lot of good things in here that I find very interesting. Microaggressions, oh geez, but I kind of we got to skip a little bit to the end because for the normal person, again, it can seem a little out there, although it's come home to so many people really under the Biden administration, although it goes back further than that. But what does the average person need to know to even feel like they aren't powerless to go to combat this huge, aggressive campaign of thought? I mean, I was watching hockey, for crying out loud, and up comes an Apple commercial, and there's a dude, obviously a dude, with lipstick, and he's acting like a bad stereotype of a teenage girl, and I'm like, what? It's just all over us these days. And of course, you get into schools now, you're talking about people's kids. What does the average person need to know that they can even do to stop this nonsense?
Well, the example you gave is this perfect example of the mainstreaming of deviancy. And that's what George Will said. It's not my phrase. George Will said this many years ago. The idea you're going to take the most abnormal things you can find, the most extreme behavior you find, and try to put a smiley face on it, put perfume on it, put lipstick on it, and then mainstream it and try to make people think that, oh, this is normal. And I think that advertising agencies in particular are stocked with people who fancy themselves avant-garde and want to basically change the view, change society, et cetera, as opposed to simply marketing products that people you want to buy in a way that makes them want to buy it. So what is the average person, the normal person who simply wants to live their life? They're good-hearted people, hardworking people, salt of the earth, Americana, all that kind of thing. Well, DEI, and it really swept business at the same time it swept the higher education institutions. And this was a real problem, because once people found out what these trainers were doing when they came in, basically attacking people, saying that you're racist because of the color of your skin, you're complicit and you must confess your racism, which of course is complete nonsense, if not absolute malfeasance, if not illegal in some respects, and depending on how they're presenting this sort of thing. It's just get up and walk out is my view, is what I tell students to do. Understand your rights, understand that what they're saying is basically ideologically driven. There's no basis in academia or genuine academics for this nonsense. It's the kind of stuff that we expunged from the university years ago, like alchemy and astrology and pseudoscience, that kind of thing. So what you can do is stand up for your rights and say, I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm not going to give you legitimacy. And you do this en masse, these people are out of a job. And that is happening more and more frequently, especially in higher education. I should tell you that I'm very familiar in my own situation where 2 DEI people simply disappeared from the campus. There was no announcement. Their office just disappeared. They disappeared. I have no idea where they went. But people who were out front, they were out front talking about this nonsense all the time. Suddenly they're gone. And no one's talking about it. It's like a presto.
They're not taking a dirt nap, I hope.
No, I don't think so. Went off to this is one way the universities are handling the situation. Just pretending it never happened. We were never part of that nonsense.
Quietly shuffling them out. That is crazy. All right. Well, okay, people, the first thing you should do is pick up DEI Exposed, to arm yourself, educate yourself, and to be able to defend what you really know inside already, which is that this is a big con. I want to show you a quick reference place for you to go. It's brutalminds.com. That is Dr. Ridgley's website. He's got links to the DEI book, as well as his previous book called Brutal Minds, and some good resources. So if you want to follow up, do follow up there. I'm here at Life Today. We like to leave people with hope. And so I will ask you, in conclusion to our conversation, which again, we've just scratched the surface, so there's so much more here. Is there hope for the average person who knows this is messed up, but just feels a little intimidated or a little scared? Is there hope if they stand up and stand on truth? Can they push back against this?
I think if you stand up, if everyone who stood up simultaneously who recognized this as nonsense, you'd find out you were in the majority. And you'd be able to basically usher these folks right on out the door and into the little conclave or enclave that they need to be in, where they can affirm each other's prejudices, et cetera, et cetera. We can go on with our own lives. I think that's one of the things that most of us are looking forward to. It's going to happen faster than we believe. I never thought I'd be saying this, but thank you to the current administration and its efforts with its executive orders expelling and expunging this nonsense from our institutions of higher education. I think we're in the midst of a renaissance, a restoration of progress and logic and reason and scientific method and and humane values. I think we're going to triumph.
Yeah, but we can't rest in that. We need to make hay while the sun shines, as the old people say.
Yeah.
So let's get out there. Let's push the ball down the field, to use another analogy. Let's do some good things while we can, because it's a lot easier right now than it was just a couple of years ago.
If I can give you a website right now, you can do something today.
Okay.
I like to say, see something, say something. Okay. The website is civilrights.justice.gov. civilrights.justice.gov. And that takes you right to the Office of Civil Rights. And you can write your complaint. You see some sort of manifestation of DEI is still at your university. You can take it right to the Office of Civil Rights, and they will listen to you nowadays. Let me tell you, they will.
Very cool. All right. You see that website on the screen again, civilrights.justice.gov. Okay. That's empowering.
Yes, it is.
And just the education, the knowledge you provide for us is empowering too. So thank you for that. I appreciate your time and insight. The clock's just flown by, because this is one of those things that gets people riled up, but it's nice to know that we are empowered to push back against this nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. If you have a hankering to hear the second half of that book, and we got time and you got an interest, let me know and I'll be happy to go back. All right?
I could just talk about this for. I don't know. What do you guys think out there? I'd love to hear your feedback on this one, especially. And if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to Life Today Live, I would invite you to do that. You never know what we're going to talk about here. We try to cover a lot of things to empower you. And hit that share button, let other people know, and come back. We'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.
All we say to America, be true to what you said on paper.